ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We start a new lesson, theory of perception, chapter 18. Before we go into the text, we'll have a brief intro on what is the lesson, theory of perception mean, and what is the subject. We studied law of karma. And based on this law of karma, we understood a couple of factors is understood. The first factor that you understand based on law of karma is what? There is an action and there is a consequence to the action. The cause is the action, the effect is the consequence to the action is the effect. So there is the cause and there is the effect. Wherever cause and effect is established, understood, what goes along with it? That which goes along with it is a sense of reality. The question now that we are going to discuss in this lesson is law of karma has established everything as real based on the principle of cause and effect, including reincarnation, etc. Along with it, it explained another factor. What is the other factor that law of karma explained? It is said ever changing. Action by nature is limited, and the consequences by nature is also limited. So you perform action, you experience the effect. While you are experiencing the effect, you do another action. So as you are experiencing the consequences of your action, you are doing another action that will create its own consequences in the future. So there is this ever-changing reality is what law of karma established. Are you okay till now? This is what law of karma has established. Now the question is, we are not discussing on the cause and effect. We are shifting the discussion from cause and effect to two. What are we shifting the discussion now? We defined ever-changing reality. Ever-changing is cause and effect, etc. Now the discussion is shifting from ever-changing to reality. Abstract thoughts. Abstraction. Unless unless this abstract thought is understood as in theory of perception, the most abstract thought, which is Maya, is impossible to understand. And people straight away say, we understand the world is Maya, the world is Mithya, and they have no clue to what they are saying because it is just a repetition of what they have heard, but not an understanding. In order to understand, you need to examine the question of reality. What brings reality to anything is the question. What brings reality to anything? What is the common sense answer? What is the common sense answer? How real is this experience of I am talking and you listening? How real it is? It is 100% real, sir. There is no doubt. On what basis you say that? You yourself said, no, experience. I am experiencing. I am talking. I am real. Your mind is elsewhere. Your mind is not present. Do you have an experience? Therefore, for anything to be real, what is very important to be present? What is it that gives reality to anything? The mind. Take away the mind, there is no experience, there is no reality to anything. Therefore, the reality is entirely dependent upon the mind. If it is entirely dependent upon the mind, then the question is, how real is real? How real is real? The biggest problem when it comes to theory of perception, Maya, and the last 4 chapters of Vedanta treatise, or Vedanta philosophy itself in general is, sir, up to law of karma, it is very practical, useful. Let us stop with that. What is the point in discussing all this abstract concepts? What are we going to get out of this mere theorizing and all this kind of stuff? Theory of perception says any application is based on a sound knowledge, a sound theorem. Wherever there is an application, wherever there is a useful application, wherever you find something very useful, what you should understand, there is a sound theorem behind it. Without knowing the theorem also you can apply and derive a benefit. Without knowing the theorem, you apply and get a benefit. The benefit is very limited. You understand the theorem and apply, the benefit is complete, 100%. So in order to apply the principles of Vedanta, we need to know the theorems. Up to law of karma, you don't need, it's not abstract. Up to law of karma is not abstract. Karma, bhakti, jnana, yoga is not abstract. You going through these 3 states of consciousness is not abstract. You have a body, you have a mind, you have intellect, is not abstract. All these are applications. And where does these applications come from? Applications come from a sound theorems. And those theorems are starting now. That's why it's called the essence of Vedanta. What is that theory of perception? Don't worry, I'll be going into a little bit of elaboration on the word perception, and then I'll go into a little bit of elaboration on the word theory also. Before we get into the lesson, I'm trying to connect the thought flow. What is the connection between the previous lesson and this lesson? And how does it flow into the next lesson? For law of causation, theory of perception, Maya, the illusions. So the question that is discussed here is, what is the nature of reality? How real is real? What brings reality to anything? These are the questions. And the question of appearance versus reality has been bothering great thinkers, philosophers from the ancient past. Wherever there is a thinking human being, the question that person will always try to find answer is, what is the appearance and what is the reality? For a lay person, it doesn't make any difference. When I am worried whether the red alert in Chennai is real or not, whether we are going to get flooded or not, when we are worried about that, why are we sitting and wasting our time in this? Abstracts. For a layperson, he is more concerned about the specific problems of life. One is the specific problem of life, another is a general problem. Not knowing how to attend to the general problem brings about the specific problem. What is the specific problems that we all face in life, that we all look solutions for? The specific problem is, I don't have wealth, I want wealth. I want wealth, but I don't have good relationships. So I have wealth, I have relationships, but I don't have peace of mind. These are all the specific problems. Apart from the specific problems at the individual level is social level problems also. Why so much of badness is there? Why nobody is following the rules? Why there is so much of corruption? All these are specific problems. A layperson is more worried about dealing with these specific problems, for they are so preoccupied with these specific problems. Vedanta says these specific problems are like Ravana's head. You solve one, another head comes up. You know Ravana's head, no? Rama kept on shooting the head. Another head keeps on coming. It's like Krishna, the boy Krishna jumped into the lake, and the 1,000-headed serpent. You subdue one head, the other head comes. You subdue another head, the third head will come up. This is the way in which a layperson lives life, by solving the specific problems. A thinker means who goes more penetrating into life, says all these specific problems that is coming must have a fundamental problem. If I can go to the fundamental problem and find a solution to that fundamental problem, these specific problems would be handled by itself. These specific problems can be handled by themselves. Therefore, two ways. One way is you go to a therapist and ask how to handle a specific problem. You go to the therapist and ask, how do I handle my wife? He will teach you how to handle the wife. 3 years it will take to teach him how to handle the wife. And then again, you have to go to him how to handle the son. Because he says, I only taught you how to handle the wife. Son is another course, another 3-year course, how to handle the children. Now you learned how to handle the wife, you learned how to handle the children, but you don't know how to handle the boss. There is another specific problem for which you have to go another course. So by the time you finish all the course, you are tired and fatigued. You are so confused, not knowing how to attend to anything. So two ways of looking at it. A Vedantin, a philosopher, he will not be concerned about the specific problems. Since his attention is on the fundamental problem, a philosopher, a Vedantin, always looks very selfish and self-centered, because he appears to be not at all bothered about the issues that the vast majority is affected by. Are you able to connect? That which a layperson or the vast majority of the population is affected by. What are they affected by? Specific problems. As long as flooding doesn't happen in my locality, I'm all right. No. Now, in what other parts of the flooding happens, what difference does it make? Specific problem. A philosopher, a Vedantin, is not interested in the specific problem, but is interested in the core of it. When you get to the core, it gets abstract. When you get to the core, it turns very abstract. And the first abstract lesson that we are going to study is theory of perception. It's called theory of perception. The question of appearance versus reality. and the different orders of reality, different grades of reality is what is very much interesting and very important to know. Why it is very important to know? All the specific problems that you suffer by, all the specific problems that you do not know how to handle is because you have no clarity on this fundamental. So from now on, we will not be discussing any specific problem. Up to law of karma, it is very interesting. Purushartha, there is a destiny, there is the past, but then you can use your effort and you can change your past and you can determine sky is the limit. You can do whatever you want to do. Halfway through, what happens if you die? Nothing will happen. You will continue. Reincarnation says you will continue. Wow. Very, very interesting. Very meaningful. Suddenly the discussion shifts to real and the orders of reality, and then illusion comes and says there is no such thing called reality at all. This is the lesson, theory of perception. Now we will go into the word theory first. Before we discuss the word perception, Anshu, I don't know whether we'll be able to get into the text today, because these two words itself is a bit challenging to understand. One is the word theory and another is the word perception. First, we will discuss the word theory. There are words. There is the word hypothesis, there is the word theory, and then there is the word law. And then there is another word, speculation, conjecture. So there is conjecture, there is speculation, there is hypothesis, there is theory, there is law. There are various English words. Now, in what sense we are using the word theory here, we should understand. Most of the times when we use the word theory, what do we mean when we use the word theory most of the times? Most of the times we use the word theory to mean a speculation, a hypothesis. A person is saying it, but no way it can be proved. We use theory in that sense, correct? We use the word theory in the normal sense as in a hypothesis, a proposition, a hypothesis, and it stays as proposition. There are supporting logic and reason given to that proposition, but ultimately it doesn't get the status of a law. There is a proposition, and then you give logic and reason to support that proposition, and it stays as proposition only till the end. What would you call that? We call that as conjecture. We call that as conjecture. Man simply says something, and then he blabbers something to support that, and then he concludes. Therefore, what I said is correct. We don't accept it as we don't accept it as a valid knowledge. So, first is what is not theory. The second meaning of the word theory is a hypothesis, because all are used interchangeably. All are used. We use so mixed up all these words, we lack clarity in thinking. So clarity in thinking means knowing to use the appropriate word and sticking to that appropriate word. If you know how to use the appropriate word and if you stick to that appropriate word, it's called definition, and that is called science, logic and reason. Then only it can be called as logic and reason. Therefore, what is hypothesis? Hypothesis, as in science, is you propose something and you are telling it is a proposition made, follow the logic and reason, you will understand it ultimately. You will understand. The moment you understand it, the status changes from proposition the changes, the status changes. From proposition, the status changes to what? It changes to a law. Changes to a law. Some stay at the level of hypothesis itself. What is the hypothesis? For example, there is an hypothesis talking about the extinction of the dinosaur. Would you call it as theory of the extinction of dinosaur, or law of extinction of dinosaur, or hypothesis? What word you will use? What word should you use? Okay, forget what word you are using. Always you use the wrong word. What is the right word that you should use? Hypothesis. It is an hypothesis. 65 million years ago, a comet struck and the whole world, everything in this world died, and along with that dinosaur also. It is an hypothesis. Then comes a beautiful development of thought into a theory. Einstein called his principle as, what is the name that Einstein gave to his principle? How did he call it as? He called it as theory of relativity. He called his principle as theory of relativity. Here, how he is using the word theory, we use the word theory in that sense. We don't use the word theory in the sense of, that's why when I said in the theory of reincarnation also, I touched it briefly, but there, if you remember, I said when we go to the next lesson, we would elaborate on the word theory. Because in the theory of perception, the lesson itself is entitled theory. We discuss it. So how did Einstein, what did Einstein call his principle as? He called it as theory of relativity. How do we distinguish between a theory and a law? How do we distinguish between theory and a law? We never know. Vedanta can be so confusing also, sir. Till now, we thought Vedanta is the most practical, useful subject on this planet. Now we are understanding why Vedantins are all very complicated personalities. Because if you talk all this, how it will be? What is the difference between theory and a law? Law implies a statement of order. Law implies a statement of order that has found to be invariable under the same conditions. As long as the condition remains the same, something remains the same. That is called as a law. Are you able to follow? Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. It won't boil at 100 degrees Celsius anywhere in the universe. It will boil at 100 degrees Celsius under at a given place, at a given time, under given things. As long as the situation remains the same, there is an order. What is the order? Water will boil at 100 degrees centigrade. Celsius, I don't know, whatever Celsius, centigrade, whatever be it. That is called as a law. When we use the word theory, in what sense in Vedanta we use the word theory? We don't use the word theory in the sense of a hypothesis. We don't use the word theory in the sense of a law again. We don't use it in the sense of law also. Because law, to maintain, to call something as a law, what is the prerequisite? A law requires something static. A law requires, for a law to operate, for a law to function and operate, static standard conditions are required. Correct? Then only a law can operate. Therefore, Einstein can never say law of relativity. Correct? He has to call it as theory of relativity only. Why? Because it is not an hypothesis, it is not a law. Again, it is a scientific principle. What is the scientific principle of a theory? A greater range of evidence and talks about the truth is a theory. And it is supported by a lot of evidence and talks about the truth. It's called as a theory. So when we use the word theory, Pastor, when we use the word theory, we don't use it in the sense of theorizing. In some context, we use the word theorizing means as though that person has their own, as though it is that person's opinion. Theory of perception or theory of reincarnation is not that. What is a theory? A theory is a system of explanations that puts together a whole bunch of facts. Again I repeat, a whole bunch of facts is put together and there is a system of explanation putting those facts together. That is called theory. Don't ask me from where you get all these definitions. It's my own conjecture. It is. If it doesn't make any sense, ignore this class today. Doesn't matter. So what is a theory? A theory is a system of explanation that ties together a whole bunch of facts. What is a whole bunch of fact? There is a birth, is a fact. There is a death, is a fact. And then there is something that ties the fact of birth and death together. The fact that ties the bunch of birth and death together is called a theory. And there we call it as theory of reincarnation. Similarly, we are using another word, theory of perception. Etymologically, the English word theory, because I have a problem. I need to know the etymological meaning, because the proper Vedantic study says niruktam. Niruktam is the study of etymology. And all languages has this etymology. So the English word theory etymologically comes from the Greek word. There is a Greek word, and that Greek word is the origin, etymological derivation. Etymological derivation, you can find out. If you Google it, they will tell you the etymological derivation. The etymological derivation of the word theory comes from the word theoria, meaning to speculate upon the divine, to contemplate, to think, to speculate. In that time, speculation means thinking. Speculation doesn't mean how we are speculating now. Yeah, it's not betting. See, today's speculation means betting, isn't it? Before the match starts, we speculate. Who's going to win this match today? It's a speculation. Nobody knows who's going to win. But then we bet. Now, the word theory comes from the Greek word theoria, etymologically, meaning to contemplate, to think, to speculate about what? About divine. And what is divine? Divine was understood as harmony and order. Divine, all this is English derivation. For the last 2 minutes, I'm talking English derivation etymology. And English derivation etymology, I will write it down and keep, because I don't remember it. Divine is understood as harmony and order permeating the world surrounding us. That is called divine. So what is theory in the true sense? Theory means thinking about the harmony and order that is permeating the world. What is thinking about the order and the order and harmony permeating around us, around the world. Vedanta uses one word for that. What is that word that Vedanta uses? Reality. So, theory of perception. The word theory means thinking. Thinking about what? Thinking about the order. So that is the word theory. So what we understood by the word theory now, we understand theory doesn't mean anymore in Vedanta. Whenever in Vedanta we use the word theory, always understand it as how Einstein uses the word theory. Not in the way how the newspaper uses the word theory. Are you able to understand the difference between the words, application of the words theory? Now comes another word. This is not that difficult. The word theory is not that difficult. Then comes another word, perception. What does the word perception means? What does theory of perception talk about? What does the word perception means? In Sanskrit, perception means samjna. There are so many jna. Prajnanam, samjnanam, vijnanam, ajnanam. There are so many jna. All comes from the root jna. Samjna. Perception means samjna. Samjna is the Sanskrit word for perception. Jna means to know. Sam means association. That we have seen in so many contexts. Sam means association. Therefore, samjna means knowledge or knowing by association of two things, subject and object. The word samjna means knowing through association. Knowing through association. Association of what? That is implied. Association of what? Association of subject and object. Wherever the association between subject and object occurs, there arises a knowledge, and that knowledge is called perception. The English word perception is more related to sensory perceptions. In Vedanta, we take care of the sensory perceptions also, but we don't restrict it to the sensory perceptions. We take it to the next level. What is the next level of sensory perceptions that we have understood in Vedanta? To revise, eye is the organ through which perception happens. We have seen it already. That's why I'm just refreshing it. It's easy to follow. Through eyes, registration of sight happens. Does the eye see? Layperson says the eyes see. Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and the Prakriyas of Panchapadika, Vedanta Paribhasha, Drigdrishya Viveka. So these are all the texts that has a theory of perception is taken from those textbooks. I will refer the particular portions from the Upanishads also from where this theory of perception comes, because all the thoughts has an Upanishadic origin. All the thoughts of Vedanta has an Upanishadic origin. Now, what is perception? Eyes see. Does eyes see? No. We have seen that already. Eyes is the sense organ corresponding to the gross fleshy organ called the eyes. There is a corresponding indriya in the mind. So the sight goes through the gross organ, connects to the indriya, which is in the mind, and then the mind recognizes, I see. This is how knowledge happens, perception happens. I explain one. When you sit for your reflection, you extend it to all the other four. When you sit for your reflection, you extend it to all the other four. So we are taking one. Now, the eyes per se cannot see unless it is connected to the sense center. And the sense center is located in the mind. We have seen that. That sense center is called Jnanendriyas. When we define the human being, we define human being having set of physical organs and indriyas. What is the indriyas? The 5 sense centers of perception. Where are they located? They are located in the mind. So the eyes see. Question is, what makes the eyes to see? It is the mind that makes the eyes to see. It is the mind that makes the eyes to see. And when it sees, how does it see? It doesn't take it and see. It doesn't go inside that and see. How does it know anything? How does the mind know anything? The mind knows anything only when a corresponding thought is born. So knowing equals thought. So theory of perception is nothing but birth of the thought. How thoughts are born. Why do we have to discuss how thoughts are born? Because reality is given by the thoughts. Thoughts moving at a speed gives reality to everything. Just as films running at a speed makes the movie real, appear real on the screen. Correct? Per se, it is single films only. Unless you make the film run at a speed, there will not be a, unless the film runs at a speed, it is that speed that gives a continuity, a reality to the movie. Similarly, the thoughts occurring at a speed, thoughts running at a speed gives reality to anything. The question is how thoughts are born. What is the birth of the thought? So perception here means how thought arises, how the thought is born. Theory of perception means birth of thought. Why do we have to know about the thought? Thoughts running at a speed is what is giving it a thought. Moving at a speed is what gives reality to anything. If thoughts doesn't move at that speed, it doesn't give, the reality is less. No thoughts means it doesn't exist as far as you are concerned. Correct? If there is no thought, it doesn't exist. A human being existing versus my daughter existing. There are two things. Correct? There is a human being existing. 8 billion human being existing. What difference does it make one more addition? What difference does it make that addition? Or what difference does it make if that goes out also? Yeah. I'm using my daughter because I can't use your children as an example. So why recording Osari, you will say, isn't it? There, you know. And if something happens, I will be blamed for that also. Yesterday in the class, you said, no, sir, that's why this happened. Yeah, that's why I'm comfortable using my daughter as an example. So the thought that connects to that person is what brings about the reality to that person. The moment you give reality, you suffer, you experience the consequences of the reality. All that we have studied already. Now we are studying the very core of the issue. What is the very core of the issue? How do you give reality to anything? Is it perception? Perception cannot give reality to anything because the instruments, the physical instruments are very poor instruments. The physical instruments are very poor instruments. Even if you have a high quality instrument, it's still very poor only, no? So supposing, even if I don't have to use the glass and still I can see with the eyes, how I was seeing a few years back without the glasses. Even then, the eyes was a poor quality instrument only. On what basis we say it is a poor quality instrument? Because it has its own limitation. One. Second is, unless the mind is backing it, the instrument cannot do its function. Unless the mind is backing it, the mere presence of instrument is of no value, is of no use, unless the mind is backing it, the subtle body. So all that we have discussed till now is what? Perception. The Sanskrit word for perception is samjna. The English word for perception is, in this context, knowing, knowledge. In this context, you can call it as knowing, you can call it as knowledge. And there are so many types of jñas. As I said, samjna, prajna, prajnanam brahma, that prajna. Pra means to know. Jna also to know. So what is pra means? Pra becomes a prefix to jna. Beautiful is that language. Pra becomes a prefix to na. What is that prefix here? Knowing the fundamental. So prajnanam brahma, the Mahavakya prajnanam brahma says the fundamental knowledge, the fundamental knowing, the pure knowing. The pure knowing, what in regular classes, what in regular sessions we use the word unconditioned consciousness, pure consciousness, etc. So theory of perception is about conditioned consciousness. Mahavakyas talks about the pure consciousness. Prajna means the basic awareness of an entity by itself. The basic awareness of an entity by itself. Nothing in the world is aware of itself. Everything is dependent on, for everything is dependent on something else for you to know. So here we are talking about two levels. One is knowing by itself. Another is knowing through something. All our knowing is through something else. What is through something else that we know everything? Since it is through that something else, all our knowing are limited by through which we know. Therefore, in the world, there is no such thing as absolute knowledge. All knowledges that we have is purely relative by nature. So, there cannot be an absolute knowledge in this world. There cannot be an absolute knowledge in this world means there cannot be an absolute fact also. Or everything is related to something else. From this, two words we have explained. What are the two words? The word theory and the word perception. So combine the theory of perception in a very simpler terms. If you want, you can revisit the class mentally and figure out everything. Or if it is, or you can put it very simply as the birth of a thought. If you can understand birth of a thought, then you can understand the different orders of reality, because the different orders of reality is nothing but thoughts getting consolidated. Are you able to follow? If you want to understand the orders of reality, how real is your problem? Now come to the practical aspect, because every time, every 15 minutes, if I don't bring in the practical aspect, yeah, It becomes over the. So, the order of reality. The intensity of the problem is related to what? How intensely you have thought about it. So the intensity of the problem is never the intensity of the problem. The intensity of any problem or any situation is entirely dependent upon how many thoughts you have deposited. Are you able to follow? Venkatachalam. So, lesser the thoughts you deposit, less the reality, less the problem. No thoughts you deposit, no thoughts you deposit, what happens? Vijay, no thoughts you deposit, no problem. That state is called the state of liberation. That state is moksha. Theory of perception reveals the truth about the world. Theory of perception reveals the truth about the world. What is the truth about the world? There is the observer and there is an observed, and this observer, an observed transaction between observer and observed is happening only because there is an underlying reality supporting it. Theory of perception brings in the reality. And the starting point of the reality starts with theory of perception. If you want to understand Brahman, you have to start from theory of perception. If you want to understand Maya, also you have to start from theory of perception. That is why theory of perception is such an important lesson. Is Ganesh here? Bhaskar. Ganesh Irgrara?
I'm here.
Is that sir?
I'm here.
You are, yeah, you are there, Ganesh.
Yes,
Are you
sir.
what is perception means?
It is still tough, sir. It is tough.
That's why specifically I called you only for this purpose. Okay. Perception means sensory perception. Understand the word perception in a normal usage. In the normal English usage, how do we use the word perception? The ability to become aware through the senses is called perception. In the modern day context, perception means a belief, a thought, an opinion, often held by many people based on appearances. That is also called perception, no? In the modern day context, when they use the word perception, how do they use the word perception? How do they perceive? We all have a perception about Pakistani, correct? Pakistani have a perception about the Indian. The North Indian have a perception about the South Indian. South Indian has a perception about the North Indian. Here the word perception means a belief, a opinion. Are you able to follow, Ganesh? Thought, perception is loosely used in the modern day context in the sense of a belief, an opinion, often held by a group of people. It can be, and then it is come to individual perception also. So individual perception means individual opinion. So most of the time in the modern day context, the word perception is used in the sense of opinion. We are not using it in that sense. We don't use the word perception in the sense of an opinion. We don't use the word perception in the sense of a belief held by an individual or a group. That is not the word, that is how we don't use the word perception here. We are using the word perception to mean knowledge. Why can't we use the word knowledge and use the word perception? Because the starting point of any knowledge is the senses. Since the starting point of all knowledges is the senses, it has to have a connection to the instrument. That connection to the instrument we make, and we call it as theory of perception. So for all practical terms, you have to understand it as theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge means not a specific knowledge. Again, we have a problem with the word knowledge. Knowledge means, again, we think of a specific knowledge. How all knowing happens. How all knowing happens. How all knowledge is done. Because based on the knowledge only, you are giving reality to it. The question is, what is the question here? What is real is as real as we see it, as we perceive it. Is it as real as we see it? If it is not as real as we see it, then what is the real? That's where the question is. How real is real? Yeah. We'll go for a complete spin. But don't worry, sometimes spinning is okay. Ganesh. So perception means not in the sense of a thought or a belief. Perception in the sense information, knowledge, understanding about everything around you, including yourself. You know yourself and you know the objects and beings around you. The question is, how is this knowing happening? This is something that is very, very intriguing. This question of how knowing happens. I am knowing myself and I am knowing the world around me. How does this knowing happens? That's a very interesting question to the philosopher. As I said in the beginning, for a layperson, it will not make any. For a layperson, it will not make any difference. Why are you confusing? Isn't it? You open the eyes, you are seeing. That's all. Where is the why are you unnecessarily? Why are you unnecessarily confusing that which is straightforward? Why do people have to confuse? That which is obviously true is not that obvious. Philosophy starts here. Are you able to follow? That which is obvious isn't that obvious. So the word perception means the ability to become aware through the senses. Another meaning of the word perception that we use is perceiving through a pramanam. Understanding that happens through a pramanam is perception. Again, I repeat, perception is understanding that happens through a pramanam. Sight, the color. For color, what is the pramanam for color? The sight. Correct? So, perception means knowledge gained by perceiving through a pramanam. What is the starting point of all pramanams? The starting point of all pramanam is senses. Therefore, it is called as theory of perception because senses. The starting point is senses. Why do we say senses? Because senses, through the help of the senses only, we observe. Even though there are pramanams, we have seen many pramanams, 6 pramanams we know. But then we don't use the 6, we use only the 4. What are the 4 pramanams? Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Agama, Shabda. Agama, Shabda. One and the, these are the 4 pramanams. The 5th and 6th is Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi. And Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi also comes under inferences. Therefore, we bring everything under Anumanam only. So there are 4 sources of pramanam by which we gain knowledge. What are the four sources of pramanam by which we gain knowledge? Direct perception, inference, comparison, shabda. Shabda means words of somebody. Somebody's words, not yours. Somebody's words. Vedanta comes under what? Pramanam. Vedanta comes under Shabda Pramanam. Why? Because somebody is saying it. And when they say it, they use logic and reason to elaborate it, and then they'll help you to experience what they experience. Once you experience their conclusions, your own experience becomes the Pramanam. So here, knowledge that happens through a Pramanam is called perception. Knowledge that happens through a Pramanam is called perception. For example, you read about Superman. You read the comic Superman. You read the comic Spider-Man. Even now I read the comic Phantom. You know Phantom, no? Has anybody read Phantom? Yeah. Skull ring, no? He comes with the, correct. He comes with the skull ring. Up to 36 Phantoms I studied. After that, I don't know what happened. Whether he's there still continuing or not, I don't know. Up to 36 Phantoms. Under what Pramanam it comes? No Pramanam. Why? Because it is one person's imagination. Correct? Under what Pramanam does Spider-Man come? Under what Pramanam does Superman come? It doesn't come under any Pramanam. Why? Because you know that such a thing doesn't exist, but created for an entertainment purpose. There is no knowledge. Or what is right knowledge about Phantom? You understand? An imagination for entertainment. It is an imagination for entertainment, but has no reality. Supposing if you are going through a problem in life and you start calling, oh Phantom, come and help me. Oh Phantom, come and help me. What would you say? No knowledge, correct? Are you able to follow? So what is perception here means, Ganesh? Perception here means knowledge gained by an appropriate pramanam by following a method. Appropriate pramanam means there is a method there. There's a method of tarka, nyaya, mimamsa, logic, reason, analysis. So a knowledge that is formed by following a authority pramanam, and that pramanam is not arbitrary. Pramanam means it's not speculative, it's not arbitrary, it is not conjecture, it is not hypothesis. It follows a method, a sequence. So any knowledge that is gained through a pramanam is called perception. So the English word, the way in which we use the word perception means this. Invariably, I'm not saying it's a wrong usage of the word perception. We don't use it. After a few weeks, supposing a person has come for the classes for the few weeks, after the few weeks, you can ask the person, how do you perceive the classes? It means, what are you asking for? You are not asking for pramanam perception in that sense. When you say, how are you perceiving the classes, means what are you asking for? What is your opinion about the class? Correct? So here we are not talking about theory of opinions. Here we are not talking about theory of beliefs. We are not talking about theory of beliefs. It's not theory of opinions. It is how knowledge dawns on you. How knowledge itself occurs. How knowledge here means knowing. Now don't worry about what you know. Are you able to follow? Don't worry about what you know. How does knowing occurs. For reality, the question is, keep connecting to the fundamental question, then only it will be clear. If you forget the fundamental question, then theory of perception will be utterly confusing. For the question is, how real is real? On what basis we give reality to anything? The basis of reality to anything is knowing. How real it is? I know it, sir. I know. I know it, we say no. Here we are not, here we are giving reality through knowing. So what is theory of perception? Theory of perception talks about how the process of knowing happens. Tell you, it's not an easy subject. I'll try to make it easy. Today only we have introduced to know. Maybe next class also we'll go in introduction only, I don't know. Because I have seen very few have truly comprehended the subject, theory of perception. Very few. Why? Because one of the abstract subjects. And if this abstraction is not understood, Maya is simply impossible. If theory of perception is not understandable, Maya is almost impossible. If theory of perception and Maya is not understood, how can the aphorisms and the Brahman and all can be, how can you develop a conviction on all that? Therefore, theory of perception, the abstraction of Vedanta starts with theory of perception. And theory of perception here means the process of knowing. The process of knowing. One of the persons asked this question. How do you know what you know? How do you know what you know? And the answer is, I know. That's all. Correct? What is the answer? I know, sir. Why are you complicating? I know. But philosopher Vedanta does not agree to this. It tries to find the methodology behind it. And there is a method. There is a system by which knowing happens. Are you okay till now? We are not interested in how knowing happens. How, with the help of consciousness, only all knowing happens is what is going to be proven here. Again, I repeat, how all knowing happens with the help of consciousness only. How it is the consciousness that helps you, that makes all knowing possible. And once you know it is because of consciousness, all knowing is happening, then what is the truth? What you see is an appearance. What you know is an appearance. What is real? Consciousness becomes real. That's how the sequence goes. Tell you, one of the very interesting, to me personally, I'm saying, in my opinion, in my perception, I'm saying now, Ganesh. In my perception, one of the very, very interesting lesson for me is this theory of perception. And where does it, in which textbook it is there? The next question. In which textbooks it is there? In which Upanishad it comes? Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 7. Someday, sometime when we are reading all this, hopefully we will read all that one day. One day, I'm wanting to talk on all the 10 Upanishads. One day when we get to that point, we'll read that also. Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 7, section 21, mantra 1, Chandogya Upanishad, talks about theory of perception. It says, without having a thought, one cannot know anything. That's all it says. That's all it says. Without having a thought, one cannot know anything. It is only after having a thought one understands. This is Chandogya Upanishad. Again, theory of perception comes in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also. What these great masters do, they just take that one statement and elaborate and arrive and derive a whole lot of a system out of it. But the whole thing is said in a formula form there in Chandogya Upanishad. Again, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also it comes. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, chapter 1, section 5. All of a sudden it went. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, chapter 1, section 5, mantra 3. Again, it talks about how Brihadaranyaka Upanishad talks about it. I was absent-minded, I did not hear. I was absent-minded, I did not see. Therefore, it is very evident what? That a person sees with the mind, hears with the mind. When touched from behind, a person sees through the mind. That's all Upanishad says. Oh my God. I say you can sit for years together with that one thing and derive a system out of it. Now, from these Upanishads, some of the future later masters, who are the later masters? Padmapada, one of the disciples of Shankaracharya, wrote a book called Drishya Viveka. We do not know that there's a debate about whether it is Adi Shankaracharya or somebody. I'm not getting into the discussion. I'm not getting into that debate. That we will leave for politicians to decide who's the real author. There is a book, Drishya Viveka. The distinction of the seen and the seer, the knower and the known. That is one book. Another beautiful book is Vedanta Paribhasha by Dharmaraja. Dharmaraja, he was the king of Kashmir. The king of Kashmir wrote a book called Vedanta Paribhasha. I think 10th century or 9th century. He wrote this book. One of the extraordinary introductory textbooks to Vedanta about talking about theory of perception alone. You can buy those books, but nothing you will, not that you cannot understand. You can buy. I'm giving those references so liberally. I'm giving those references because even if you buy it, one paragraph you cannot survive. Beautiful than that is Panchapadika of Padmapada. Panchapadika of Padmapada is Padmapada. Shankaracharya wrote a Bhashya. These people wrote a Bhashya on his Bhashya. About 1,100 verses he talks, Padmapada. It comes under 12,000 verses, it goes. 1,100 verses. What you go for a... Yeah. Now you know why we become like this, no? That's why safest is to, before you study Vedanta, safest is to shave it off first. Because you will not have anything to tear. Otherwise you will tear. 10 verses you are tearing, 1,100. These are all the Vedantic textbooks that talks about this theory of perception. Ramatirtha talks about it in a few lectures, theory of perception. Swamiji beautifully has put it together in this chapter. The beauty of it is all the relevant things are taken from all these. Why I'm giving this is, if you want to understand this lesson, you should have read so many books, I'm saying. For this lesson, you should have read so many books. That's what I'm saying this. Because I read all this. I sat and figured out from where he got all this. Because he says it's all in the Upanishads. It's all from the Upanishads. Now, where is it in the Upanishad? It is because no Upanishad will say theory of perception and start. It doesn't start like that. Chapter it doesn't start. You have to be so attentive to each and every word. You have to be so attentive to each and every sentence. And if you are attentive, you catch it. You are very attentive. Okay. This is the textual references for theory of perception. When we go to Maya, again, I'll give you the textual references. See, Mahavakyas, we know the textual references. Law of karma, we know the textual references. For the Panchakoshas, we know the textual references. For the 3 states of consciousness, we know the textual references. For karma, bhakti, jnana, yoga, we know the textual reference, Bhagavad Gita, etc. When it comes to theory of perception, where is it? These are the books. And they start with the definitions. They start with making it very simple. And their simplicity itself is very simple. It's too simple that we get utterly confused. Why? Because the English words that we use, the meaning changes. Because of the meaning that is changing. Stress management. With this, I conclude for today. And we'll continue with the introduction in the next session also. Stress management. Psychologists will understand stress management very differently. Ganesh, before coming to Vedanta classes, your stress management is what? Because of stress, the building cracks. Correct? Stress management means, supposing if I tell Ganesh, come, there is a seminar on stress management, he will think what? Okay, we are going to talk on how to fix cracks in the building, because stress, it is. So when we use terms, we use the terms specific to that science. Then it becomes clear. That is the lesson in clearer thinking. Bhaskar, clear then. When you use terms, use the term according to the usage of that science, not with your pre-existing usage. Ganesh, are you able to follow now? If you use it with your pre-existing knowledge, it will be confusing, because that particular science has a very particular specific usage for that word, perception. And it's not only you. Most of those who read this text will have this problem of understanding what does theory mean and what does the word perception means. So what does the word perception here means? Knowing through a pramanam. Theory means a scientific explanation of how knowing happens through a pramanam is called the theory of perception. So put it like this: theory of perception equals scientific knowing of how knowing within brackets happens through a pramanam is called theory of perception. Are you okay, Ganesh?
Yes, sir.
Are you okay now with the word perception? Yeah. Venkatachalam, are you okay? Huh? This see, these kind of books alone has material for contemplation. These kind of subjects alone has material for contemplation. In law of karma, it is understanding and obeying that. That's all. Are you able to follow? See, as far as law of karma is concerned, you understand the law, and after that, there is no more contemplation possible there. All that you got to do is obey it. So only when it comes to these kind of concepts, you can sit and contemplate a lot. And these are all material for contemplation and theory of perception. Because when we say essence of Vedanta part C, it is contemplative material. And what is contemplative material? Theory of perception, Maya, the reality beyond Maya, that thou art. The 4 lessons from now on. From now on, all the 4 lessons that we study is contemplative material. It is very interesting. It is a bit abstract. At times, I'm warning, at times it may tend to get boring, but I'll try and keep it as entertaining as possible. will tend to be, it will tend to get boring at some point of time. But you understand, unless you understand the theorems rightly, application, you will have a problem. The application of specific problems, solution to specific problems doesn't come from that specific problem. Solution to specific problems comes from the understanding of the fundamental theorems. So in fundamental theorems are these, upon which we can really contemplate a lot. Are you okay? With this, we conclude for today, and we continue with the theory of perception introduction next class also, because I thought I'll just quickly finish the introduction today, but it just went my short introduction is not becoming short at all nowadays. Yeah. My short introduction itself is becoming too long. I don't know. I think maybe I should start saying my long introduction. I will keep it short, I think. My long introduction, maybe it will be short. So we'll continue with this introduction, then we'll study the text as an idealism, realism, etc.